Okay, so I just did a short on the State of the Union speech last night, and they only give you 1 minute on the YouTube shorts. And of course, I immediately realized you're not going to be able to cover everything in 1 minute. So we're going to do this. That was not a campaign. That was not a State of the Union speech we got last night. It was a campaign speech. It was divisive. It was combative. It didn't mention the State of the Union, didn't talk about America, didn't talk about the crime, didn't talk about the inflation, didn't talk about the economy, didn't talk about the difference between Main Street and Wall Street, where one is rolling in dough and the other is starting to fall into a recession for lack of access to capital under an inverted yield curve. He didn't talk about the banking crisis developing in New York, at the New York Community Bank, which could trigger others to fail. He didn't talk about the banks that failed last year. He didn't talk about the stock market much either. And he didn't talk about America. He didn't talk about the border. He didn't talk about immigration. He didn't talk about inflation. He didn't talk about energy. He didn't talk about crime. He didn't talk about policies about flying aliens all over the country, illegally in violation of Title 8, Section 1324. He didn't talk about the policy on the border, which is crime as a matter of policy. No, he tried to blame the Republicans for the border crisis, for not passing the border bill, which didn't provide border security. It codified the processing of 1.8 million aliens into the country every year before it shut down a single thing at the border. That wasn't a border security bill. That was a codify the processing of 2 million aliens a year into the country. And he's up there telling Donald Trump to pass it with him. What is he, an idiot? They couldn't get it out of the Senate when it was exposed for what it really is. He thinks Donald Trump and the Republicans are going to help him pass it so that when Trump gets into office, he can't stop the immigration because now it's in law. What a bunch of traitors. So he tried to blame everyone else for everything, specifically Trump, the Republicans, and Congress. Well, what did he say? He didn't start out by talking about America. He started out by saying he wants 4 more years of war with Russia in the Ukraine in an endless artillery battle. We have to keep sending the Ukrainians more money, more money, more money. Objective? Oh, we don't have an objective. We're not trying to end the war. We're just trying to wear Putin out. Oh, but you've armed Putin. You gave him a high price of oil, which is funding his war. He can conduct an artillery battle for the next 100 years. You're already looking for money to pay the defense contractors to build more artillery shells, which are nearly gone here in the U.S. because our military never expected that the next war would be an endless artillery battle. I'm pretty sure they were planning on conducting it from the air. You remember shock and awe? The battlefield plan that has controlled the battlefield since World War II? No, not Joe. He wants an endless artillery battle with Russia. Oh, so he also wants to help Hamas. He wants to build a port in Gaza with U.S. money. He wants to inject us into the religious war in the Middle East and help the terrorists. Doesn't he understand that every single penny of humanitarian aid that's been put into Gaza for the last 20 years has been stolen by Hamas and used to arm themselves, terrorize and attack the Israelis, and build a network of tunnels under hospitals and schools in Gaza from which to wage the war in a manner that the Israelis can't fight back because you can't attack hospitals and schools, even if the enemy's munition dumps are underneath them? Oh, but Joe, that's what he wants. He wants more war in both the Ukraine, and he wants to jump into the Middle East. There's a plan. Let's not worry about the crime in the cities of America. Let's not worry about the illegal aliens overwhelming social services in every city they go to. Let's worry about Gaza. and Hamas and their terrorism against Israel. You don't think maybe we should stay out of that since it's a religious conflict? And it is Hamas that is the terrorist organization and attacked Israel again. They've been repeatedly attacked since the end of World War II, and every single time Israel has shut them down. And they don't want a two-state solution, do they? They want Israel exterminated. That's what from the river to the sea means. The entire territory removed and replaced with Palestine, an Arab state. Well, that ain't going to happen. Accept the two-state solution or leave. Oh, no, they won't leave. They're going to continue to wage war. Israel have every right to shut that down. And for Joe Biden to try and help the terrorists is just sick. No, humanitarian aid, you moron. They'll steal every penny. They'll steal every penny. Oh, we're not going to deliver money. We're going to give them, they'll steal all the food and sell it on the black market, you idiot. What are you going to do? Put U.S. troops in there to hand it out? Oh, there's a good idea. Think the UN will do it? Oh, that's right. You can't get the UN in there. Russia and China won't vote to support it. Gee, there's a surprise. Oh, and when Marjorie Taylor Greene interrupted and forced him to say Laken Riley's name, he got it wrong. He called her Lincoln. He doesn't care about America. It was an afterthought. He wasn't going to mention it. She forced him to by interrupting. He didn't offer any solutions, didn't offer any policies, didn't talk about trying to stop crime, didn't talk about how he's going to handle the immigration problem, didn't talk about the border. As I said, the one thing about the border he wants is for Trump to help him pass the codified $2 million a year processing, which is what they've been doing, processing people in. They're not throwing anybody out, they're processing them right in. Criminals, gang members, cartels. They're lucky the cartel members go back to make another run. Surprised they don't just stay here and set up distribution here. So he didn't mention the hostages in Gaza that Hamas is holding, the American citizens. He didn't mention them. He wants to help the terrorists, but he didn't even demand that the hostages be returned in exchange for the port. He didn't even demand that the citizens, he didn't mention them. 6 American hostages are being held by Hamas. Has Joe ever talked about it? Oh, we're negotiating for that. No, you're not. You're offering to give them a port. You think they're going to give you back the hostages when you tell them there's money on the line? Now build the port, then we'll give you back your hostages. The man's a real absolute moron. I mean, how can a politician be so friggin' stupid and oblivious to what's happening in his own country? Just absolutely oblivious. He didn't talk about the inflation his energy prices created and his monetary policy is exaggerating. He didn't talk about the fact that oil's about to go back up again, creating another wave of inflation. They've lied about the inflation numbers, which aren't 9%. It's somewhere between, well, if you've been to the supermarket, you know it's somewhere between 30 and 60%. And higher for other certain items like gasoline, diesel oil, utility bills. So this absolutely was not a State of the Union speech. It was a divisive campaign speech. And of course, he also talked about taxing the wealthy, taxing the rich, taxing the corporations. Now, I absolutely agree that letting the corporations off without tax is criminal. But it's because of the law that they passed. And every time they try to write new law, surprise, there are more breaks in it and the corporations don't pay anyway. What you need to do is get rid of the income tax. It taxes profits and demotivates everyone to not have profits, to artificially eliminate them with false deductions and expenses that deny dividends to shareholders. It's a completely fraudulent system that needs to be thrown away. You don't need to tax them 25% on their profits. You need to get rid of the tax on profits and tax all the businesses 4% every month on every dollar that crosses their registers. 4% on revenues, no deductions, no expense deductions. You want to have zero profits? Explain the exaggerated expenses to your shareholders without having taxation to blame. You got to stop demotivating persons and companies to produce as much as they can by taxing them if they produce more than they need, i.e. profits. There's no profit in an hourly wage of labor. The whole system is one of enslavement. And they want to use the enslavement of the American people to launch themselves into control of the world, which is why he wants to spend money in the Ukraine and the Middle East, but not here in America. Oh, and let's not forget that they want to send money to all the Central American companies so that they can solve the immigration problem at the source. How's that working? How's that working? Yeah, great policy, Joe. Great policy. So again, this man does not deserve another 4 years. If the American people elect Joe Biden to be president for another 4 years, there won't be an America left. The currency will be destroyed. They're going to print it into oblivion. The cities will be unlivable. They're already approaching that. Oh, and did Joe mention the National Guard being deployed in the New York subways? Not to secure the platforms, but to search every single American entering the platform? They're not focusing on the criminals. They're focusing on people carrying bags, American citizens. No warrants, no search warrants. Let's just create a panic of crime, and then when they call for help or assistance to end the crime that we created, we'll send in the National Guard, only we won't just use them to secure the platform and stop crimes that are occurring and to prevent crimes from occurring because they're there. We're going to search all the Americans. It's another exercise in psychological behavioral control, just like COVID. How much fear can we instill, and then what can we get them to give up? What rights can we get them to give up in order to have their fears quelled? Will they tolerate a police state? Let's find out in the subway. Let's find out in the subway. There should be 1,000 lawsuits filed in New York this morning to stop this. They're not there to prevent crime. They're there to submit, to gain the submission of the people, to control them. Oh, but when Trump wanted to put the National Guard on the streets, no, you can't do that. That's a Nazi state. That's a Nazi police state. So that's exactly what they're doing in New York. And they're all carrying, you know what they're carrying? Yeah, that's right. The AR-15s. So the Democrat solution to crime was to put the guns that they hate in the subway. Thousands of them. But they won't let you put a single armed guard in every school in the country to create the same wall of defense. So the guns that they hate, that's what they deployed against you. Because they're not, like I said, they're using it to force you to submit to warrantless searches without cause or reasonable suspicion, without legal cause or probable cause, and no suspicion. Just the fact that you're there with a bat. So this is the State of the Union. You're being transformed into a dictatorship where the political power persecutes and attacks its political opposition. And its philosophical opposition, as in attacking Catholics and the parents of children who object to their children being taught homosexuality as a curriculum, or who object to race being part of an education, a focus on race, rather than quality and content of character or of mind. So that's the state that Joe Biden is taking us to. The police state, the ruled state, the World War III state. He offered no policy solutions, no policy changes, didn't discuss any policies, didn't discuss the deteriorating quality of life in America, didn't discuss the escalating crime in the inner cities, didn't discuss the complete and utter failure of the public school systems, didn't discuss the debacle in Afghanistan, where he got 13 armed service members murdered because he doesn't have a chain of command that can say yes to the sniper to shoot the bomber before he pulls the string. Didn't talk about gasoline, diesel, or energy, or the inflation he's created. That's part of the State of the Union, isn't it? Didn't talk about the increased food prices. Didn't talk about America. He raved against his political enemy, blamed them for everything else, and accuses them of being a threat to democracy, while he's the petty dictator trying to put his political opponent in jail, putting Catholics and parents in jail, putting January 6th protesters in jail for 20 years, while the FBI agent who incited the whole thing and entrapped them was never prosecuted until he was forced to by all the video of him going into the Capitol, into the Capitol. That was an FBI agent for 2 days inciting the insurrection. It was all entrapment. And what did he get? Oh, that's right, probation. The leader of the Proud Boys organization wasn't even there. He got 20 years. The man who was there and did it, who made it happen, they didn't charge him. Gosh. Is that a police state? Is that the State of the Union? Only while Joe Biden's in office. Only while Joe Biden's in office. This man needs to go. This man needs to go. He is the enemy of the American people. He is the enemy of the Constitution. He is the enemy of the Bill of Rights. He is the enemy of our heritage, our history, and our culture. He is leading the nation to economic oblivion, the destruction of the currency, and to World War III in both Russia and Israel. If you're thinking about voting for this man, you need to think again and start reading or listening and watching. All the information's out there. I have everything written up at tax-freedom.com, and we're starting to produce the videos on the Thomas Fried channel that lay out the bottom lines in short 1-minute videos so that the American people can be properly informed on what's really going on, what the motivations are, and what the proper path is to take, and how the erroneous path that we're on can be easily corrected with a little bit of intelligence and the application of some creative mind to spread the word. Okay, this is Thomas Fried on taxfreedom.com and the Thomas Fried channel, urging you to get informed before it's too late.